Welcome back again, Wizards, to another episode of the Wizard Factory podcast, where you subscribe for weekly videos exploring deeper knowledge of the universe and yourself. We are joined again by Sean Black, the Norse Pagan Shaman, on Facebook, and we are going to get now into, we opened up last week with generally the topic of what it means to be a Norse Pagan Shaman, and what that means, like, from the historical aspect, and then today we're going to be getting into the modern day applications of this idea, essentially. So getting started, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure to be here.
What do you see, Sean, as the biggest problems that we face as essentially becoming a modern day pagan?
There's two real important aspects to consider here. And the first one, because I like to do things from a historic perspective, the first thing is to rebuild our connection to our ancestors and to animism, which has been disconnected by the industrial age and a variety of other things that we talked about in the last episode. But in addition to that, we have a whole slew of new problems that make it harder for us to accomplish. Even if we knew all the details of the things that our ancestors did, it's going to be very, very difficult to accomplish that because of a variety of toxic components to mind, body, and spirit. Now, we can talk about the mind first, and that's going to be a reference to indoctrination, living within an empire instead of living within a clan culture or a kindred culture or a tribal culture, right? So what we're experiencing is sort of a slow return to tribal culture. And we're going through all the growing pains that you would expect, trying to convert ourselves from living in an empire to living in a tribal culture from a mind, body, and spirit perspective, of course. All three apply. But so the indoctrination that we're facing, like consumer indoctrination, the idea that we're all a bunch of raccoons chasing shiny objects, and that's what our life has sort of demoralized ourselves into. I mean, it's devolved into this idea that this monetary perspective is there without turning any of that energy into personal power, rather turning it into a consumer lifestyle, Mm-hmm. We've got that whole slew of things. Then you've got this major disconnection from what energy really is. And a lot of that's motivated by academic society and the massive amount of concepts that come out of science as we see it today being predominantly material reductionist type science. And we're seeing some changes there that are kind of moving parallel with this tribal concept, right? We're seeing a massive polarization towards things like study of consciousness within science, like epigenetics and like quantum science and quantum physics. And some of these things are filtering down from the ivory towers by some really great educators and storytellers, like Nassim Haramein, for example, with the Consciousness Project. What's the name of his project again? I forget what it's called. Fucking guy's brilliant. It's the Resonance Project.
Resonance Project. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got these guys that are out here like trying to lay out some of these inner workings of some of the stuff Einstein and some of these other great minds were working on years ago. And finally, this stuff is getting to where it can be explained to us on this level if we're listening,
Right.
And that's where the energy and the mind sort of come together, and where the physiology and the energy come together. That's kind of our responsibility with regard to relearning ancestor veneration and animism. And that has brought the need for shaman, because shamanism is the understanding and application of animism and ancestor veneration.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then last but not least, we've got physical poison. We've got physical poison to the extent that by way of pollution and the medical industrial complex that we've bought hook, line, and sinker like a bunch of fucking lemmings. we've got all these poisons that we're putting into our bodies that keep our physiology from working well enough that even if we understood all the practices of our ancestors, we couldn't execute them because our physiology is not aligned well enough for that energy to flow through us to get the same kind of results. I mean,
Right.
It's so bad that even herbal medicine is virtually ineffective to a large swath of our population because they're so chemically polluted that the herbs can't do their work.
Right.
These are some of the challenges that we're facing as far as, becoming pagan, from a realistic perspective, and then we've got academics that are studying the mental part of being pagan without the experiential part of it being pagan, claiming themselves to be these arch-pagans or whatever. But they can't practice it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But thankfully, we've got some heroes on that front, like Edward Thorson or Stephen Flowers. You may know him. He's one of my big heroes regarding this. Thomas Carlson, another one of my big heroes regarding this stuff. And there's a lot of others out there. So we're not alone. We're not going to die and this whole thing's going to dry up and blow away and never be forgotten. It's not like that. But there certainly are challenges.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there when talking about, it's important to have that academic study and everything, and that knowledge and those resources. But when it really comes down to is the direct experience and actually being able to go out and practice that. And we can see this not only in what we're experiencing in the reconstruction of, European paganism here, but in anything, like anything you're learning, like it's great to learn it in a book. Yeah, you have that, but you have to actually go do it. Like you can read about how to build a house, but until you go build a house, you haven't built a house.
That's right.
And that's what it really comes down to. So, having both of those aspects is very important to highlight, as we have to overcome both of those challenges as a way of moving forward.
We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, all very good points. So obviously, some of that, I'd say, the solution-wise could be kind of self-explanatory. Obviously, like for example, purify the body. That's and there's definitely a lot of ways to do that. But so some of the more difficult aspects of that, Sean, maybe you could riff on some of the what you have discovered being effective solutions to the more difficult problems there that you've listed.
Right. Well, one of the most difficult problems that we have is the sort of neutralization of our children, and the doing things like we're doing some really stupid things, Okay. Let me preface this fucking statement with saying that I am not anti-vaccine, but the problem is every vaccine on the market has got a neurotoxin, a dangerous neurotoxin in it at dangerous levels. And, we're giving our kids 72 of these shots before they're fucking 6 years old. We're setting them up for failure and with that kind of dumb shit. And, the pharmaceutical industry is full of those kinds of things. And we're just starting to wake up to that a little bit. And, like I said, I'm not anti anything. What I am is I'm about being responsible with your physiology and understanding
things. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of dickheads.
If I give you the poison or the antidote to a poison, but I mix it with antifreeze.
Right. Yeah.
And then I give it to you and you're like, I don't want that shit in my body. That's antifreeze. And then
Exactly.
Everybody's like, you want your children to be poisoned, like
Right.
it's that knee-jerk reaction to everything. It's meant to be that way.
It is.
Deliberately, it's divisive and polarizing. And
it's an industry.
It's not simple.
We see plenty of examples of this throughout history. As every empire has this kind of history. You've got monopolies, and the monopolies are there to maintain themselves through many, many generations. Not just it's not like they got busted and they said, okay, we're going to take away all the monopolies, and in the next breath they said we're going to create the stock market, which allows all of the monopolies to exist the same way they did, but to be hidden from plain sight by diversified methods of ownership. So we've got that same kind of model. It's just progressed and progressed and progressed. And, like with the medical industry, the medical industrial complex,
It's essentially the same thing they did with monarchy to oligarchy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, we'll just give you the same thing, but just slightly dispersed. Like
Right. We're going to put a new label on it.
Yeah.
It's like a company like Bayer buying Monsanto, right? They're just changing the fucking labels. All those same people and all that same infrastructure is still going to exist doing the same shit. It's just got a different label. So now all the lawsuits have to be put in a different. That cancels all the lawsuits. You got to start a new one.
Did Bayer make the Zyklon B gas that they used in the fucking like gas chambers?
I don't know for sure on that.
I've heard that. I don't know for sure either. But
yeah, I don't know for sure. I do know that Ford Motor Company financed both sides of the war, and that's Standard Oil in New York could have stopped selling, like for World War II, for example. They had a fuel additive that was for the Luftwaffe, and they could have stopped selling it to them at any point. But the banks were involved with,
Get this, and this one I do know for a fact. Fanta, the singing fruity girls. Yeah. That was the official soft drink of the Nazi army. It was made for them.
Do you mean the Bundeswehr or do you mean the SS?
I don't know that specific, but yeah, it was specifically made for them, like.
Yeah, I understand.
Like,
interesting. Interesting thing about Ford.
Example. I mean, you could talk about Stalin, or we could talk about Mao, or we could talk about any of the other ones, and they all have the same things in common, and that is the central banks engaging on both sides of the war and profiting on both sides. That's the same kind of monopoly that we're talking about. So,
they don't.
But that's what we're faced with.
They don't call them the theaters of war for nothing, because it's
right. Exactly.
Yeah. And Ford actually, people may not know this, but Ford actually ended up suing the United States government. I think it was like in 1951 or something after war for like damages that the military had done bombing their factories over in Germany.
Right. Yes.
That were production factories for the Nazi Party. Yeah, they actually sued and won. By the way. Yeah,
this is open source information that anybody can go look up if you just
right.
And the biggest problem, this leads us into the mental part of all this, right? Some of the mental challenges that we're faced with is we don't know how to ask the right questions. And this doesn't have anything to do with, everything that we were just talking about. Your really, really Kool-Aid drinking brainwashed people would be really quick to use the words conspiracy theory. And it's like, no, it's just fucking history, man.
It's just history.
It's just awareness. It's
no
not.
One's ever conspired in history before.
Well, I mean, if you want to really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, a conspiracy is more than two people that have an idea.
Right.
So it's all a fucking conspiracy. Who gives a shit? Okay. The point is. And none of that matters. And figuring it out really is just, it's like a fun hobby and stuff, but there's nothing you can fucking do about any of those things. Right. So that's why I don't spend a lot of time really engaging in that kind of stuff. What I'm really concerned with is what can I change for my people and myself and my family at my level? What can I do to avoid some of this toxicity of mind, body, and spirit? So what do? First, I made sure that I wasn't a Christian, okay? Because monotheism is in the pocket of the empire. It's an empire building tool, regardless of the monotheism. I mean, you can go back to Egypt and look at the story of Horus. That whole thing was in order to build an empire. And there's plenty of examples throughout history. No reason to go into all that. So watch don't practice a religion, practice a spirituality or practice a way of life, Buddhism is fine. It's not a religion, The things that the people of India practice, they're really, in most people, there's like 28 different languages and cultures there. They're practicing a way of life, maybe ancestral, maybe not, but it's really not a religion, as monotheism is explained as a religion. So get that out of your head. The next part, of course, the physical part would be, like take care of your body, learn how your body works, and stop fucking putting poison in it. That's really simple, And again, what we're talking about here is how the challenges of modern shamanism, okay? Because these things, the mind, body, and spirit, making them clean and strong is what we're doing. I'm not a healer, okay? That the whole idea of healing really indicates something that something's broken or that you have some sort of a disease. And it neurolinguistically, it puts you in that state of mind, okay? And if you don't know what neurolinguistic programming is by this point and you're watching this show, go check it out. It's called NLP. Really important shit. Okay, moving right along.
Yeah.
So we got the mental part and we got the physical part, right? Now the spiritual part, we are so disconnected from our consciousness, from the using the ancient example, we're disconnected from our consciousness, man. And it's getting worse and worse with every new generation. We've got this silicone obsession, and it's like destroying our ability to be aware of the things around us. So managing that out of our lives to the highest degree possible without making us useless is really, really important. We're all doing this on a computer. We're doing this on internet or cell phones or whatever. I'm not saying that they're the enemy and they need to go away. And I have no fear of the future about how these things are going either. But we have to find some balance. When you see kids spending 12 hours a day in front of a screen, there's something wrong. It's not good. So these are some of the problems that we're addressing now from a mind, body, and spirit perspective. But getting back to that understanding of what consciousness is and making ourselves whole by looking at the 9 to 12 parts of self as are described by our Northern European ancestors, that is a huge, huge step in the right direction. Even basic animism and basic ancestor veneration in its lowest forms is a great step in the right direction too. So that's where my focus is: the human, individual, the family, and maybe the kindred. But after that, there's plenty of guys that are working the top down. If I do my job and make the people strong at the lowest level, then the work that the guys are doing and on larger community levels will have a lot more strength. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. And yeah, for me, one of the big areas that we have to overcome is getting out of the victim mentality and stepping back into the warrior mindset of wanting to go on that quest and wanting to seek after information and knowledge and have challenges and experiences, instead of trying to always want to be safe and always be protected and be in this little box where nothing ever goes wrong and life is just perfect. That's not really life. It's a stagnation, and you're never going to learn anything if you don't experience a challenge. So in our modern society, this idea that everybody should save you or take care of you, that has been put there from on the religious perspective, through monotheism. But then we even see it play out through the state and the government. The different sides are just wanting, some of them have mommy issues and some of them have daddy issues, and it just depends on which dialectic they're being pushed towards. Sure. So stepping back, getting out of that victimhood mindset and stepping back into the mindset of the empowered warrior, I think is really a major shift in a fundamental mindset that we have to address. That you have to shift that fundamental mindset, because that, to me, that's really one of the areas of where it starts. Because the way you process information through those two different filters are going to lead you to radically different conclusions, which will lead you different actions and create, then in turn create a different reality for yourself or a different life.
Right.
Whether you're very disempowered or you're a slave, or whether you're just, you're running things the way you want to in your life.
Definitely.
Yeah, what that's kind of bringing up for me is like when you say the word warrior, and we talk about the warrior mindset a lot on this channel, but just then it struck me as like, in context to what you're saying, being a warrior, means that you're going to be on the battlefield. And if you're standing there on the battlefield, it does not matter who is, if you have bodyguards or whatever, like, your mindset is so hyper focused, and you have to be acting in a way that is ensuring your own survival. You have to act in a way that is under the pretense that nobody is going to save your ass. It's your responsibility to stay alive until that battle is over, which of course the battle's never over, because that's the beauty, that's the glory of life. It's all ongoing, slaying the parts of yourself that aren't yourself again and again and again. But just in general, that's a really poetic idea that, being a warrior is not about being a badass and everybody respects you and everything. It's about owning yourself. It's again, it always comes back to sovereignty and having the mind of a grown-ass adult person.
Well, that's what real badassery is. Okay. Yeah. Here's the problem. All right. And I've been a warrior, like a no shit professional warrior for about 25 years. So I do have a little bit of insight on what it takes to successfully negotiate a variety of different battlefields. But I will tell you this, the big problem that we're facing now, okay, I'm going to use an Old Norse example of the structure of society, okay? And we're going to do a comparison real quick, a real short one. But our ancient society had three major roles, okay? We had Thrall, Carl, and Jarl, okay? So in the Thrall State, when you're in the Thrall State, that's basically, you're not exactly a slave, okay? Although that, of course, did happen. You don't really have your shit together well enough to contribute to society and be an individual that has, that can contribute and make decisions and all that. You don't have the maturity, you don't have the age, you don't have the skill set, you can't run a farm, you can't run a fishing boat by yourself, you know what I'm saying? Those kind of things. So that was the first state of existence. And generally that's where you were until you became a free man, until you could express to your village that you had what it takes to be independent and not require more from your community than you were able to provide, right? Mm. And so we had a demarcation point where you went from the Thrall State, as a young man or whatever, and into the Carl State. Now, Carl was essentially a free man, somebody who could vote, somebody who could attend the thing and have a voice in it, somebody who could own property, all those kinds of things. That's a state that is that was the majority of our culture, right? And then beyond that, you had the Jarl State, which was somebody who had enough experience doing a variety of these other things and the charisma and the leadership to influence people in a good direction, to listen to good advisors and wisdom and all these things. And generally that would involve schooling that would have happened back when he was in the Thrall State, like learning different languages, perhaps exploring, traveling with his parents and that kind of thing, right? So this was kind of how things were set up. Now, we're going to fast forward to today, right? The level of responsibility required to be a free man is never attained by your average American. Never. It's never attained. In most cases, there are varying degrees of that, but you are almost always relegated to a position where you are absolutely dependent on the entire society around you. Like absolutely dependent. And I'm not talking about extremisms like, well, you didn't build your road, you didn't build your car, and you don't refine your gasoline, so you're a thrall. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like you don't know enough about how to live to be able to do so in a modern state. We are kept at a thrall state, and that is the objective of empires, because empires must have slaves. Now,
you could consider the domestication as a good, more modern day, like equivalent of that.
Yeah, I would call it over domestication. But yeah, I'm not trying to split hairs. That's a reasonable word to use. So we have
learned helplessness.
What's that?
Dependency, learned helplessness.
Yes, yeah. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't somebody I was with a long time ago said, there was an electrical problem in the house, right? And so I was going over to examine it and see if there was something I could do about it. And I was told, you're not an electrician. You can't do that. And I was like, yeah, I can. Watch. I did, But but that's a perfect example of that, that self-imposed thrall state, You can't do this because blah, 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 And we are telling each other, because of the way society is molded, that there's all these things we can't do. And that's reinforced by media, reinforced by marketing. Trillions of dollars are spent probably every year or every couple of years to make sure that we are as dependent as possible.
Licensing is a huge one.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a perfect example. Absolutely. So we never progress at least not in mind, body, and spirit, past this thrall state. Now, some of us do, but very few of us actually do, So there's this huge missing component to our natural progression, and that's because empires require a large number of slaves in order to function.
Right.
Now, we've we said we did away with slavery, but actually what we did is we made everybody a slave, you know, at least financially, you know, in this country. And there's a variety of things like that. Now, you can free your mind. You can get out of the Christian concept, but you're still living within a Christianized society, and a society that's working on a framework that is based on Christianity and material reductionism. And both of those things combined put a ton of pressure on an individual to and highlight the limitations, rather than saying, fuck it, go out there and build a car that runs on water. Who cares? That would be sweet, you know? And we could do it, right? I mean, I don't know if that's a great example, but allegedly it is. So, I mean, and the reason I say that is because I don't have beliefs and I haven't seen it in front of my face, so I don't know that it's for sure. But things like that, you know, maybe solar power.
It's crazy how many examples there are of the state discouraging that. I mean, by discouraging, I mean like using violence to shut them down. You ever heard of, I forget the guy's name, but out of Taos, what is it?
Mexico?
Yeah, that builds the Earth ships.
Yeah.
And when he first started doing that, there's this awesome documentary called like Trash Warriors or something like that. If anybody wants to check that out, it's really interesting. He got this awesome group of people, these very like innovative, brilliant, creative minds, and they're out making these Earthship homes out of like tires and glass bottles and stuff like that, just basics, throwaway materials that are like incredible structures. They're not only functional, very cheap, but beautiful too. And each home that they made was a prototype.
Yep.
And so like they could, principle of minimalism, anything that they could imagine, then they would go out and build it. And they were having such a great time. And then once they started getting attention, then they sent some suits out there and literally shut them down, because they're like, well, you have to make all your homes like uniform, monoculture your houses, basically. There's that concept again. Because they're not tested, they're not like safety rated or anything like that. And so like that, and there's a perfect example of where like, oh well, the safety comes first over freedom. It's always the story.
You guys remember what Ben Franklin said about that?
Yes. Those who sacrifice their freedom for a little bit of slavery or safety, security, will achieve neither and deserve neither.
Exactly. Yeah. Those guys were not fucking retarded. Those guys were brilliant. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
But we fall for this bullshit because we get slowly subjected to a little bit, and they cut a little sliver of it away, a little more and a little more, and they're like, and they're gonna go scream at the top of the media lungs, but the children, oh, you mean the children that you're making autistic because of the 72 fucking shots you're giving them by the time they're 6? Those children? Yeah, you guys got a good program. Thanks for the hypocrisy, but fuck you.
Yeah.
Now, the Earthship thing is amazing. I actually went out to Taos, New Mexico and viewed a few of those.
Nice.
That was fucking awesome. And I was really blown away at how incredibly powerful that whole idea was. And here's the key, though, okay? We have an empire. It is in power, okay? So we got a couple of choices that we can make. And this is something this is a unique challenge that I face as a shaman in a contemporary setting. I can put on my Captain Savaho cape, okay? And I can go out there and try to change everybody, right? And what's going to happen, the same thing that's historically happened to everybody else that's tried that shit, including Nikola Tesla, and to a large degree, Carl Jung, and a variety of other folks. I will get crucified, mentally, spiritually, or physically, or I'll find myself in a mental institution, or some guys will come out and visit me that are in the vocation that I used to be in. And this is how I know it happens, and they'll be like, you need to probably not do this anymore. And, but they don't have to do that anymore because they can just shut down your entire YouTube page and all that shit. Right. Okay. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, which is a lot smarter and makes a lot more sense, is by attraction. Okay. This comes down to attraction versus promotion. Okay. The people who are smart enough to go find somebody like me, I can help those people out.
Yes.
And so can you guys. obviously there is some value to, making yourself available so that they know that you can be found, right? But the reality is, if you want to change that world, you have to change yourself, and then automatically the world around you does change. You start attracting, because of the various laws of the universe, you start attracting people to you that will benefit from what you're doing,
Right.
Where these guys make the mistake is they think that their idea is good enough, and that they have this idea that people's common sense will kick in. Okay. But common sense doesn't hold a candle to indoctrination. And that's what these people fail to realize.
You're going against the trauma-based mind control. That's what I was just going to mention when you were talking about, trading your freedom for security. The reason that works is because people are so traumatized. They're in a perpetual state of fight or flight, and in their survival brain, and trapped in the left brain. So of course that's the one thing that they're seeking and obsessed with.
Yeah.
It's the children, and
Yeah, their whole lives are running on cortisol, and they wonder why they have heart attacks at 50 years old.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't want that to happen to you guys. You guys are a little bit younger than me. You haven't seen as much of this bullshit as I have. Okay. I do not want that to happen to you guys. I would love for you guys to continue doing what you're doing, but that save the world mentality, yeah, and you're not expressing that, but a lot of people in your generation are. That save the world mentality is fucking ridiculous if you don't know how to make your own bed.
Well, it's so interesting you're talking about that attraction stuff, because that's what's come up with us essentially. You can see that in the corporate world, or I guess what the business world, I guess would be a better word, is attraction marketing.
Mm-hmm.
As instead of going door to door like a Christian, oh, you want some of this, and let me tell you why this is in your best interest and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is you're just showing the value through your own life and living that empowered life, and those who see the value there will come to you and be like, tell me how to do what you're doing, and then you're
let me
show you.
It's much more powerful.
And it's respecting sovereignty of everyone else, instead of shoving something down their throat.
Right.
Yeah. They're asking for it.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't want to babysit people. I want really sort of powerful, strong people that are just looking for a little bit of direction. Let's face it, I'm way too fucking lazy to go out there and fix everybody's problems.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm fuck you and fuck me. Okay. But if you're solution oriented, then I can help point you in the right direction to some of the experiences that I have that can be useful to you to help maybe save you a few years of running around in circles like I did,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. That's what standing on the shoulders of giants is all about. You know what I'm saying? In order to get here, I had to understand that I'm standing on the shoulders of a whole bunch of giants. If we look at just heathenry, right, which kind of started in the late 60s in America. Everybody that claims to be a heathen today has to understand that in America that you're standing on the shoulders of guys like Edward Thorson and a variety of others of his ilk, and the guys that invented the AFA and those folks. They got this ball rolling. They broke the inertia, right? Now there's still more inertia to break, and there's a lot of people like me, and there's a whole lot of other people that are out here doing this today, and younger than me that are picking up the baton, and they're running with it too. But we have to understand that we're standing on these shoulders of these giants that understood a lot of shit, and they got a lot of wisdom to offer. They may not have gone they carried the baton for their duration, and it's our turn to pick it up and continue to carrying it, and that's important. And it's also humbling, as awesome as we think what we have is to offer. And we do have a lot of great things to offer. Everybody in this discussion does. It's important to venerate our ancestors. And in the process of doing that, we also begin to develop the value for our progeny. Because those who don't value their ancestors do not give a flying shit about those that are going to come after them. And that's evident.
Right. So I think we can kind of tie this all together by, and this is yet another theme that's been coming up for us a lot in our own personal journeys, is the importance of mentorship.
Yeah.
Being a mentor for those who are willing to help themselves, but also finding mentors for yourself that you can stand on the shoulders of those giants yourself as well.
Definitely.
Always an interplaying dynamic that you can look at. That is really just what's the word? Indispensable to
Totally.
success. Yes.
Totally. And those of us that are really pushing the envelope on the sort of leading edge of this kind of stuff, and there are a lot of us out here doing that. It's really important that we are transparent with the folks that we rely on for information and motivation and guidance and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the most important things that I do. Actually, I think I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from doing this. Is I let people know that there's like 4 guys off the top of my head that are fantastic, that have really motivated me, and I continue to learn from. Are Mark Purrier from the Norena Society, Dan Updike from the Dam Podcast, Brian Wilton from he's a Gothi and leading the Gothi development program for the AFA, and Valerie Wright, who's one of the foremost folks who understand Save. Nice. These are people that are writing things and having ideas and developing these ideas and understanding this stuff. That those are go-to people for me. Another one is Arth Harger. He's younger. He's putting out great information. He's an archaeologist. He's got his perspective. Now, we don't have to become some sort of a weird religious following of any of these people. What we can do is like I tell everybody this. These are my influences. Go get your own take from this.
Yeah.
That way, hopefully, if you're one of my students, you can surpass where I am, and that would make me happy as can be.
Right.
Well,
we need more of that.
Yeah, essentially, what everyone I think should take on, if they're even considering stepping on this type of a path, is become an aggregator of information. And so what that means is to pull knowledge from as many different sources in a wide range, and then form your own opinions that is going to be unique, that no one else has read the exact same books as you. No one else has listened to all the same podcasts as you. And so you have something truly unique to bring to the conversation when it comes to, things like this, for example. And that's beautiful.
The best question you can ask in a conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's just, man, it fires me up because free speech is such a big, is under fire, like hardcore. And if people don't understand what's happening right now, it's really fucking bad, dude. Like, it's getting really bad. And that's one of the last things that happened, one of the last freedoms to be trampled before
tyranny,
before things turn hot. And you're going to have, especially in America, where people, it's going to get real ugly real quick if we don't start, figuring out something like putting a stop to all the censorship. It's a big problem.
We have to remember something really important that our ancestors understood when we're thinking about the possibility of doom and gloom and all that kind of stuff. And this is a big difference between us and our sort of Christian or monotheistic counterparts. Things move in cycles and they don't stop moving. So this is fucked up. This is bullshit, and it ain't going to last forever. Okay. And it's not going to change necessarily because we all get out in the streets and do shit about it. It's going to change because change is the fucking nature of things. So it might get worse or it might get better. And that part can be decided by our actions, of course. Sure. Right.
Upward spiral or downward spiral.
Right. Right. Oh, that's all a matter of which way you're hanging from the tree, really. Head up or head down. But that's about perspective. So we have, the challenges are pretty extreme. And I got to tell you, because I've gone to my ancestors about this specific thing, like, what the fuck do I do about this? That was kind of basically my question to my ancestors. And I spend probably 3 or 4 hours a day in meditation in an average week, probably 4 or 5 days a week, right? And reaching out to my ancestors, you know what? I was kind of expecting them to be like, holy shit, I don't know what you're going to do about this. You know, that was not the response I got at all. And I guarantee you that most people, if they would do this, would discover that that's really not where we are. That's the remnants of the victim mentality. Okay. So here's what my ancestors had to say about this shit. And I come from a pretty fucking interesting line, but they said, they're like, they were expressing jealousy at the fucking sheer volume of resistance against us and how awesome that was and how fucking glorious that is. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Think about it. These are incredibly powerful odds that we're working against. They are. Okay. When you put the mind, body, and spirit perspective to it, and you look and you have, you know, a couple hundred people a month that are bringing you these same fucking problems, right? It's like, it's incredible. It's like, this is a glorious fucking battle. Okay? And it's one that requires mind, body, and spirit to be combined in order to make a dent, in order just to survive. And my ancestors were like, we wish we had the battle that you're facing. And I was like, wow, that's the perspective I need.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, great moments are born from great opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. And that's really, that warrior mindset of like, oh, look at that challenge. Like, well, look what I could do. Like in that, and then we do, you know, we have we're here in such an amazing time. Like we were talking about earlier, like there's so much opportunity here, and there's a lot of challenge, but really, man, like that's what makes it fucking fun.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's that challenge. That's what makes it fun.
I
didn't want it to. I mean, after outlining all of those things that are working against us at this point, you know what I'm saying? Just us. Just like realizing our ancestral potential, all of the things that are working against us to do that. I didn't want to close this conversation on that note, man, because that is just opportunity. And
I was going to say, you could look at it's the Alchemist's wet dream. What we're living.
Yeah.
Look at all this pure untapped potential. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Get it.
Absolutely.
So are we going to be crybabies about it, or are we going to actually learn to take responsibility, move past the Thrall state into a free man state in the ways that we can, and help others to do that? That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's definitely a great note to end this segment on as well. Nice, positive, uplifting message. I'm definitely feeling inspired right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, just kind of to conclude, you know, it can feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. Like we've talked about, there's so many odds that are stacked against us, and yet look at all the progress that we're making. It's explosive, and that you know, that upward spiral is only going to keep compounding upwards, because look what's happening. This magic right here. We're connecting. We're collaborating. We're connecting to the ancestors, and all those are all things that are no one can stop. I mean, literally, like even in a prison, an actual prison, no one could ever stop you from doing that. So you know, it all starts here. So free this, and the rest will follow. I guarantee it. So yes.
So rediscovering consciousness and re-empowering consciousness is where it all starts. And that's my primary function. I have a school for that, and I do consults on that all the time. That is really where it starts.
Yep, absolutely.
So again, for people that are tuning in that missed last week, Sean, tell the viewers where they can find you.
Sure. You guys can find me on Facebook at Norse Pagan Shaman Facebook page. It's a consulting page, and that's my work page. You can that's my primary function, so you can always reach me there. And you can reach me on Patreon, Norse Pagan Shaman on Patreon, if you want to contribute to things like what we're doing right now, and the free Q&As and the YouTube videos that are coming up that we're going to be releasing. All that stuff. If you want to contribute to that, to keep that ball rolling and keep that energy going, go become a Patreon. Go to the Patreon page and become a patron. That's a great way to do that. And then we've got a website coming forward and a variety of other things happening too. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. But right now, Patreon and Facebook are the two best places to reach me.
Awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, and those links will be down below if anyone wants to check that out.
Excellent.
Also, encourage anyone who hasn't yet to check out our brand new website, thewizardfactory.com. Really
Yeah,
a
definitely.
one-stop shop for everything that we've got going, our products, services, podcast, everything. So check that out. You can send us a message on there. We'd love to hear from you. Please, if you're new, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you as part of the channel. Please give us a like on the video so it helps boost us and show our content to more people who needs to see this kind of thing, to feel like, all's not lost, you're not alone. There's many of us out here, and we're all trying to really like turn the tides on this shit. So,
and next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell that'll give you an alarm and let you know. Don't forget about that, guys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit the notification bell. We got new episodes every Friday night. So tune in, and we'll see you next week. But until then, be empowered, be inspired, and be encouraged.